Good morning and salam sejahtera. Hello everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the day 3 of the Bersama Malaysia Summit 2021, brought to you in partnership with Enfrasys, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, Commvault, and of course Perjasa. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Sophia and I'll be your host for the Bersama Malaysia Summit. Now ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, allow me to go through some housekeeping. In case you have any questions during this session, feel free to post them in the Q&A chat box, and we will have some time at the end of each session for the speakers to actually address all of your questions. And ladies and gentlemen, the summit will be recorded and will be available for rewatch on the Microsoft APAC YouTube channel. So for those of you who did not join us yesterday or the day before, I would like to do a quick summary on the sessions delivered on the second day of our summit. So our speakers have shared on how you can improve operating resiliency by implementing backup and disaster recovery solutions on cloud. And then we had a session on Power Apps, showing you how some of the apps can actually help empower innovation in your work. We also heard from Petronas on their modern engineering practice and how Azure helps them in their development to operation. And finally, our speakers shared on how you can provide better citizen services through richer data insights. Ladies and gentlemen, today we will have a deep dive into cloud security and governance considerations, how we can administer a successful data classification strategy in building resilient operations to protect against modern-day threats and implement best practices in security. Throughout the day, we'll be running quiz sessions as well, and we'll be giving out amazing prizes to all of you, the winners. So do stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, to kick off our sessions today, I would now like to invite Mr. Sheikh Manzoor, General Manager of the Public Sector Group in Microsoft Malaysia. Mr. Sheikh, over to you.
Thank you, Sophia. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And a very good morning and a warm welcome to each and every one of you. Alhamdulillah, today is the final day of our 3-day event. As you may already know, Microsoft's corporate mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. This mission shows that our business is all about empowerment of people and organizations. And I sincerely hope that the sharings we've done with you in the past few days has empowered you to do more, not only for your respective agencies, but also for the citizens of Malaysia. I'm equally excited that all the sharings that we've done will give you more knowledge in order for us to be able to improve more. With that, with Kalimah Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I humbly and gratefully here kick off the day 3 of our Bersama Malaysia Summit. Thank you. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Over to you, Sophia.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Sheikh. Thank you. Once again, thank you, Mr. Sheikh, for kicking off our day 3 of the Bersama Malaysia Summit. We are absolutely excited to get this started. Apologies for this slight forgetfulness of unmuting my mic. But you know what? Let's get this started, ladies and gentlemen. With this, it gives me great pleasure to invite our speakers today. Mr. Fabian Bigar, Chief Executive Officer, Strategic Change Management Office, Economic Planning Unit within the Prime Minister's Department, Encik Hussin bin Abu Bakar, Lead ICT Consultant from MAMPU, and Dr. Jasmine Begum, Director of Legal, Corporate and Government Affairs in Microsoft ASEAN and New Markets, to specifically discuss on fueling innovation in the public sector with public cloud. With this, I would now hand over the session to Dr. Jasmine, who will be helming this session. Over to you, Dr. Jasmine.
Thank you, Sophia. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. I'm really excited to be here today and look forward to hearing from 2 distinguished panelists this morning. We have Mr. Fabian Bigar, CEO of SCMO, and Encik Hussin Bakar, bahagian Perundingan ICT, Ketua Perunding Bahagian Perundingan ICT MAMPU. Thank you to both of you for doing this with us this morning. Before, I just want to go straight into the session, and I would invite Encik Hussin to kick off the presentation for this morning. Over to you, Encik Hussin. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Jasmine. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Microsoft for inviting MAMPU actually. First of all, actually it's inviting KSN and then going back down to our KP and then going down to me. So it's very, very, very. What I can say is it's a very shock to me to give this speech this morning. But anyway, I have prepared some of the slide presentation and topics of smart government and public services powering the digital nations. So today I will bring all of you with me to share our journey, especially MAMPU, our experience in the process of digitalizing the government sector. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, that COVID-19 pandemic had an effects on our public service delivery. This include the increased demand for services with the rising citizen expectations on the delivery of virtual services, workforce planning, and the needs to test the resilience of working virtually. All right. As such, the government of Malaysia is expected to ramp up efforts on the digital transformation of public services to better serve the citizen during and as well as post-COVID-19. Currently, is an endemic era, right? So during this time, the citizen expectations of the government to play a critical role as the decision maker and as well as central responder. Hence, it clearly shows that a digital government should take the lead role, to drive the catalyst of digital transformation through, number one, well-executed plan and governance. Number two, to deliver more effective citizen services. Number three, to digitize government services to ensure easy access and improve experience with the citizen needs. With the citizen needs. And number four, to invest in digital infrastructure and platform. So that is a four, the key catalyst that the digital transformation government try to impose in our country, in the public sector specifically. Okay, in current scenario, the challenge and global trends require us to change how we provide services to the people so that people's service institutions remain trusted and respected. This is very important because once public service is not served the rakyat or citizen, it will be backfire to the government as well. So with a commitment to provide the best services to the people, the government continuously implements modern public service such as strengthened organizational management planning, improvement of work system and procedure. Okay, so next slide, please. The next slide, I think, is evolution of digital government. Let me explain a bit detail in this evolution of digital government. Right. So started from 1995, actually. We have three main initiatives. The first one is e-government 1.0, or what we call it as a connected government, where the transformation on the digitalization through automation and net-enabled operation. So during this era, most of the government agencies are doing their job, manually. So when we translate the manual procedure, the manual system into the automation, this is what the era of e-government 1.0. Okay, the second one is e-government 2.0 or Web 2.0, or what we call is open government, where the changes made through collaborations among agencies, participations and transparency. That's the second era. Then the last one, the third era, is about e-government 3.0. Currently, this is a 3.0 era, or what we call is a digital government era, where the digitalization process grows very rapid, right? So there's a three era started from digitizations 1995 until now. We call it as a digitalization era. All right. Okay, now I can see the slide. Okay, next page, please. Okay, right. So now I cannot see again. It's on and off. Okay, it's okay. So in demand initiative implemented to fulfill the digital government landscape in the Malaysian government cloud as services, or what we call as My Gov Cloud. This is very hot topic right now. Yeah, My Government Cloud, PDAC, which centrally operationalized cloud hosting services for government agencies. Yeah. It has been rebranded recently into My Gov Cloud PDAC. PDAC stands for Pusat Data Sektor Awam, right? Which aim to foster and expand the usage of cloud computing in Malaysia through its cloud first policy. So now we are in the midst of binding a cloud framework agreement, where there is a 4 cloud provider, which include Microsoft, of course. Then I think you know another 3 cloud provider. And then we are, as of 31st July 2021, there is 202 public sector agencies are using the service involving 478 application and 3,145 compute resources. This is solely on the PDAC. It's not on the the public cloud, so-called public cloud under CFA or under Cloud Framework Agreement, which consists of Microsoft, AWS, Google, and TM. So this is solely on in PDAC cloud, in private cloud. Okay, now another initiative, if you look into the screen, is what we call as MyGovUC. MyGovUC is a unified communications and collaboration service that combine multiple communication channels, like email, audio, video, WeiSee, messaging. All right, so currently we have almost 400,000 users, comprising 22 ministries, 187 agencies, and 1 state secretary office using the services right now. All right. So another initiative, what we call is MyGovNet, or Malaysian Government Integrated Telecommunication Network. Yeah, it provides single, integrated, secure, and centrally managed telecommunication network service to optimize resources and increase service delivery for the government. Right, and the MyGovNet project has provided 9,878 MyGovNet wide area network lines, including the internet to all ministries. And currently we're going to expand our wide area network to the local government, to the state. And also at the same time, we have MyGovNet PCN, covers 95 agencies in 73 buildings in the Putrajaya. This is only for Putrajaya. And MyGovNet Global services include 32 Malaysian embassies and consulate office located abroad. So MyGovNet, I can say, is covered worldwide, right? Okay, another initiative from government, from MAMPU, is leveraging the shared platform and infrastructure MAMPU. We call it MyGDX. It's Malaysian Government Central Data Exchange, right? Actually, data sharing platform. This is the main data sharing platform in government, right? It's a data sharing platform that offers a data brokerage service that enable information to be shared and coordinated and across government agencies. But maybe in future, we are now in the midst of study to expand our platform MyGDX to the business entity or industry entity. So there is a G2G integration or data sharing, and also G2B integration and data sharing later on, maybe by end of 2022. Yeah, that's what our target. All right, another initiative from MAMPU and government is DRIC, or Data Raya Sektor Awam, is more on the big data analytics. So over the years, MAMPU has also implemented a public sector or data, big data, or DRC. And the public sector open data enable data sharing, of course, to a wide range of users, in addition, is increase government services transparency, providing opportunities for citizens and the business community to leverage those open data using their creativeness. All right, so let's go to digital government achievements. So what the achievement in the government public sectors? Okay, next slide, please. Okay, if you look at this the screen, the digital landscape provides the government with the capacity and capability to deliver digital government services as a result, as you see, in 2020, the online service index for the government of Malaysia elevated to 34th place, in 2020, compared to 2018 at the 27th place. So this is shows that we are in a very good momentum to increase our digitalization, digitalization in our government public sector. All right. So another one is I think about the EGDI. Yeah, EGDI or E-Government Development Index. Malaysia has secured 47 place among 193 countries for the year 2020, as compared to 48. Is one step higher, place in 2018. Yeah. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. This is what we call it as a public sector digitalization strategy, and this is very, very, very important for government sector, for government public sector. The public sector digitalization strategy, where had been launched by Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Dato Sri Muhammad Zuki bin Ali, our Chief Secretary General to the government. Actually, is aligned with the aspiration of My Digital. Yeah, we are the what we call it, PSD SP, or in short. Yeah. And both plans, My Digital and also the PSD SP, actually is to ensure that the public sector also move into the current digital modernization and apply the concept of living, working in the 4IR era by producing a skilled workforce in digital-based business and digital investment. So, okay, now let's have a look into another initiative, a government initiative in My Digital. Next slide, please. My Digital. My Digital actually is, was launched on, I think, all of you knows about this. My Digital is very famous blueprint. Yeah. So currently, My Digital is in the public sector, especially in MAMPU. We are very, very what we call it, very very every day. Actually, we have to to look into this Bible, My Digital, because there's a lot of initiative in this blueprint, especially in the cluster 6 under government cluster, whereby MAMPU was being appointed as secretary for that cluster, and the KSN as a chairman for the cluster, right? And then, of course, there's a lot of initiative under this My Digital blueprint. I don't want to talk much about the My Digital blueprint. Maybe my colleague, Mr. Fabian, is know much better about the My Digital blueprint. Okay, the next slide, please. Okay, as you see in the E2E public sector services, this is very important because this is one of the KPI for top management in public sector. E2E public sector services, whereby we have now achieved the achievement of end-to-end services for citizens until July 2021. It's only 57.02% for the public sector. Yeah. So this is one of the key issues that the government looking forward to increase the achievement of the E2E in the public sector. Maybe by end of 2025, we targeted 80% of E2E services to the public. To the citizen will be achieved. All right. So these are one of the very important initiatives in the government sector. Okay, another initiative in government from government is a national AR4IR policy. Yeah, AR4IR policy. And as you know, on the 1st July 2021, the government introduced another policy. This is another policy. Actually, it's a complement to My Digital Blueprint policy. The Malaysian digital economy blueprint is driving the developments of the digital economy. The National 4IR policy is a policy that acts as a guide, guide to harness the potential of 4IR that include physical, biological, and digital technologies towards national development, right? Okay. Actually, My Digital and National 4IR policies support national development policies such as the Vision for Shared Prosperity 2030, or Wawasan Kemakmuran Bersama, and the 5 years Malaysian plan. So in this case, our commitment is to make sure that Malaysia, a nation that achieves sustainable growth and fair and equitable distribution across income group, ethnic regions and supply chain. So the Digital Economy Council will govern strategies and initiatives under the National 4IR policy and the My Digital Blueprint. All right, so that's under National 4IR policy. So next slide, please. This is very, this is very rare. I mean, it's very difficult for us to disclose this amount of value of the money that we are currently spend in government. If you look at the screen, the government has approved 128 digitalization projects involving a total cost of 3.8 billion ringgit, with an allocation of 538.7 million ringgit for only 2021. So it's a very huge amount of money. And we believe that the amount of money will keep increasing, from year to year. So this is one of the, I think when the industry side or the private sector side must grab this opportunity with the government hand-to-hand working, how to make sure the digitalization in our country be realized.
Thank you, Hussin. If I could just, as we are coming up to time, maybe you want to wrap up for now, and we
yes. I just to conclude my my presentation today. I would like to emphasize that national digitalization is a very critical requirement, in ensuring the country continues to move forward in the face of the uncertainties and challenges of globalization. Likewise, the success of the public sector digitalization agenda also needs to be supported by continuous effort of all ministries, right? Agencies, including the private sector, of course. And then all the planning and implementation of the blueprint initiative that I'll mention before, principally those involving the government cluster, is our voice to the people that the public sector is committed to ensuring that all levels of society will benefit from My Digital aspiration. All right? That I wish everyone a successful summit ahead, and thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hussin. I think it is a perfect segue and central policy document that we continue to discuss in this, who else better to cover it than the man who is helming one of the most important policy documents, which is the Digital Economy Blueprint. Mr. Fabian, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jasmine. It's always a pleasure to talk about the blueprint. It's the central document that guides everything that's happening now. Okay, I have the slides now on, and then maybe next slide. Okay, this is just an introduction. Just to talk about the journey. It started in 1996 with the introduction of MSC, and then now we have come to lots of documents that you can see: productivity, Internet of Things, And finally, in 2021, which is not in the slide, we have two documents that we have launched: the Digital Economy Blueprint as well as the 4IR policy. Okay, when you talk about the blueprint, when they drafted this blueprint, right, the landscape at then, this was the landscape in Malaysia. I think all of you know these figures by heart already. We're not doing quite bad, in terms of connectivity, mobile cellular penetration, in terms of our ranking in the world. Of course, you can improve it further. I won't go very much into the detail. Sorry, next. It was the next slide. Okay, I won't go into the detail, but if you can see some of our rankings, I think we can do better. Okay, in terms of e-commerce, ride-hailing, utilization, I think we're quite there in the region. Of course, we can do better. Okay, next. When we do everything, of course, you need to have the case for change. That's my training in past. Always ask the case for change. For the blueprint, of course, they identified 6 areas, 6 challenges that we face as a nation. Number 1, of course, is to have a digital first mindset, and of course, higher digital technology adoption across the public sector. Okay, and then you need to have a supportive ecosystem for local enterprises to digitalize. And of course, connectivity, the need to have a better deployment of quality, not just the numbers, but the quality in terms of broadband and digital technologies infrastructure. And most importantly, of course, we need to have a future-ready workforce. Okay, and then we need to bridge the digital divide among income groups, age groups, and then of course between genders as well. And finally, of course, in order to adopt the technology, you need to build trust, ethics in using data and technology, as well as increasing awareness on cybersecurity. Okay, next. If you look at the blueprint, of course, the overall overarching objective or vision is for Malaysia to be the regional leader in digital economy, and of course, you must achieve inclusive, responsible, sustainable economic development. There are 3 objectives. Number 1, of course, to encourage the industry players to become not just users, but creators and adopters of innovative business model under the digital economy. Again, we mentioned about human capital that is able to thrive in the digital economy, and to nurture an integrated ecosystem that allows the society to adopt the digital economy. There are 6 trusts that responds to the 6 so-called challenges that I mentioned earlier. Number 1, the trust is, of course, to drive the digital transformation in the public sector. Number 2, to boost economic competitiveness through digitalization, build the enabling infrastructure, and then to have an agile and competent talent, digital talent, to create an inclusive society, digital society, and to build trusted and secure ethical digital environment. There are 22 strategies across the board. There are actually 76 initiatives, 48 of which is national initiatives, usually driven by government agencies, as well as 28 sectoral initiatives. Okay, next slide. I won't go into very detail. As you can see, this is a mapping of the trust and the strategies under it. Okay, next. Okay, in terms of governance structure, there is actually, as this is a very important national agenda, we have at the top, a National Digital Economy and 4IR Council chaired by the Prime Ministers. Okay, the members of the council comprises of those in the cabinet, the ministers responsible for each cluster, and relevant private sector representatives, as well as academicians and CSOs. Okay, we at SCMO, or formerly called SCMO, but we are also known as My Digital Corporation. We are the secretariat to this committee. And under it, you can see that there are 6 clusters. Call it clusters, or you can call it technical working group and so forth, but we call 6 clusters chaired by members of the cabinet. You can see talent is chaired by the Minister of Human Resource. Infrastructure, of course, is chaired by the Minister of Multimedia and Communications. Emerging Technology, the Minister of Science and Technology. Economy, naturally, is under MITI, sorry. Society, to bridge the digital divide, is chaired by the Ministry of Women. And government, chaired by the Chief Secretary to the government, because he's also a member of cabinet. That's why I mentioned cabinet members instead of ministers. Okay, these, of course, there are members of each committee that cuts across different ministries that so-called lead the implementation of some of the initiatives in the blueprint. Then, as expected, you will have private sector participants in each of the clusters. There are also working groups that cut across all the 6 clusters. We have the agile regulation that's championed by MPC. We have cybersecurity, championed by, of course, the Cybersecurity Agency, KDN, NACSA, and so forth. And of course, inclusivity and sustainability, chaired by EPU. And the secretariat for all these clusters, of course, the respective ministries, and for government, rightly, is under MAMPU. There are also multiple working groups that fit into this, so-called structure. You have private sector working groups. I think you have the Malaysian Digital Alliance that, working together with TOPA. And then we also have federal and state government-led initiatives. And the latest one, we actually have a committee between the federal government and the state government, chaired by the Minister of Economic Affairs, TOPA. Okay, we have set up, and of course, the secretariat is our office. If you look at the target outlined in the blueprint, of course, it covers both the interests of the rakyat, the businesses, and the government. Creation of 500,000 jobs by 2025, 100% household with access to internet, students who have access to online learning. 22.6 of the of the GDP comes from digital economy. But that figure, I think, if you look at the 12th Malaysia plan, it was revised upwards, 25.5 if I'm mistaken. And 175,000 micro, small, medium enterprises to adopt e-commerce, to attract 2 unicorns. Actually, it was revised to 5 unicorns, 70 billion investment in digitalization, increase the number of startups to 5,000, and 100% of civil servants to possess some form of digital literacy. And of course, the target was brought forward from 2025 to 2022 by the previous Prime Minister. All ministries and agencies to provide, cashless payment options, end-to-end, 80% in government services, and 80% of usage, cloud storage across the government. And also, the target is now set to 2022. Okay, next. Oh, I forgot to say next. Okay, that was what I was talking about. Can I have next? And the aspiration, of course, the document is not a standalone document. It's actually in line with the 12th Malaysia plan, as I mentioned, in line with the 2030 agenda for sustainable development, shared prosperity vision of 2030. Of course, at the end of the day, what you want to see in Malaysia in 2030 is agile and data-driven government. You have innovative digital economic growth, seamless and extensive digital connectivity, of course, fit for purpose, fit for future digital talent, secured and trusted digital environment that people have no problem using, and of course, a digitally responsible and inclusive society. Next. As for to deep dive into the government cluster, in fact, Mr. Hussin has already shared with us a lot on it. You see, if you look at the strategies, number one, it talks about managing change for effective digital transformation or transition. Then, of course, leveraging of the digital technology to improve workflow efficiency and productivity, enhancing skill sets of civil servants, utilizing data, lifeblood of the economy, digital economy, to improve government services, and increasing the scope and quality of online services for better user or better citizen experience. Okay, so we actually keep track of this and report it to the council. The progress of it. If I may share, it's very small, but if I just mention some of it, some of the initiatives involved or targets involved, having what do you call it, chief digital officers in all the ministries. I think this is already done. MAMPU has, make sure that it's done. Of course, 80%, as you can, of government services, end-to-end government services. I think Hussin has shared. We have achieved about 57% at the federal level, and at federal and state level, but of course higher at the federal level at 70%, state level close to 50%. Okay. Next we have okay, back bit. It's still the same slide. Sorry, I have. Then we have cloud storage, as Hussin also mentioned. It's now 37% of the agencies as of end of August. It's already on board. Then we have when you talk about digital skills and competency. Yes, we are appointing about 250 trained accredited trainers under this program. Of course, it's now phase 1. To be completed by 2025. Then we also have IMATEC, which is the center of in Intan as a center of digital learning, for the government. We are working very hard with, I'm sure Dr. Jasmine is also aware in this, because she's also, involved in this, with Intan. And of course, other things include data access through API and all that. And can we have the next slide? Okay, so especially on talent in the public sector, of course, as I mentioned, you have the cluster for innovative management technology, known as IMATEC. Doing this, it provide courses which includes IoT, data science, big data analysis, cybersecurity, cloud computing, and blockchain. Then there's also the digital government and competency capability readiness. I think there are 17 organizational capabilities and 8 individual capabilities that are identified to be incorporated within the public sector. Of course, key outcomes of that program is to produce digital learners, accelerators, trainers, and also in identifying scenarios where digitalization can be implemented within all the government services. So far, I think there are 3 projects that have been successfully, completed. So I guess that's all I can present. Next, that's all I can present on this, very briefly on this blueprint. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fabian. And as we transition into the panel, I think we have learned so much about some of the key policy documents that's influencing the way we shape our public sector as we go forward. I want to keep to the theme of skilling and just ask my first question to you, Mr. Fabian, as you ended on the skilling and talent and people. As governments around the world have turned to technology to enable socio-economic continuity, especially in citizen services, education, healthcare, digital skills have become critical in paving the way forward. In addition to ensuring digital skills are democratized, the Malaysian Digital Economy Blueprint and the 12 Malaysia Plan have recognized the efforts to reskill, upskill, and cross-skill must include public sector capacity, and you just called that out. Building to accelerate data-driven and digital-driven policy making, and we see this with this target in 2030, as we strive to develop policies fit for the digital era. In addition to the digital skills in emerging areas such as cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and data science, how do we ensure that policymakers have the skills to develop digital policies? We have lived in the analog policy and we are so used to doing that. And I see IMATEC has been set up to drive this. But how can the private sector partner the government in this effort? Mr. Fabian. You're on mute, Mr. Fabian. Sorry.
this mute issue. Okay, of course, thank you. That's a very good question. Okay, historically, policies, regulations have always lagged behind, compared to the development of technology. Today, the role of technology has become very pervasive, cutting across education, healthcare and financial services. So there's a great urgency for our regulatory environment to be anchored on trust and digital native policies, which reflect the world today. So policymakers play an important role in the development of this ecosystem. As you have rightly said, pointed out, private sector has a role to play. Yes, I totally agree with you. No question about it. As we continue to work with MAMPU, JPA, and of course Intan, the training institution under governed by JPA, on the goals set out in the blueprint, we welcome, as you know, the ideas, best practices, and proof of concept as we work towards the operationalization of the blueprint. To provide a more granularity on our approach, I'm pleased to share that many programs are currently planned and in execution to equip civil servants and related stakeholders, all levels of civil servants, of course, with the necessary digital knowledge and skill sets to better understand the technology, its usage, and implication of the current policies. As we are talking about a wide spectrum of skills, right? The first step is to identify the right set of skill sets that you needed for various schemes of services within the public sector. As you know, I don't know how literally hundreds of schemes of services. From the very top, from the C level, in corporate you call it C level, all the way to the executor and the developer of the solutions. We also need to keep abreast with the best practices implemented around the world. We don't live under the coconut shell, so we need to be involved, in the digital policy discussions internationally, among nations, and learn from the best practice, in global platforms. We have also reached out to various countries, trying to understand how to do it over there. Okay, that's that.
Thank you, Mr. Fabian. I think with Pajasa as one of our partners, I'm sure they are really excited to hear. The government IT professional track is an important track, as important as the policymaker track, right? They complement each other for sure. That is very important. Hussin, if I could just pivot to you on the next question. You talked about the 12 Malaysia plan that sets out an ambitious and progressive vision, continuing onto the digital economy blueprint, which includes efforts to streamline digital governance and leverage data as an enabler in developing crisis-proof, high-performing civil service. As part of this streamlining effort, a trusted platform, we have heard the term trusted platform throughout these 3 days for data sharing between the government and private sector and between government agencies will be developed to enable data-driven decision-making. How can private sector play a role in supporting this effort, especially in ensuring that this secure and trusted platform is complemented with capacity building, enabling policies, awareness, and skills development in order to enable meaningful use of data? I know you talked about open data, data raya. Perhaps you could share it.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jasmine. Okay. First of all, I just want to let you know that between private sectors and public sector, we have worked together. We have worked hand to hand. For example, in the cluster 6 under government cluster, and we only formed one committee. We call it as a legislative and regulatory committee, where we targeted to come up with a framework how to sharing the data among public sector and also business people or industry. So in this committee, actually, we have a combination of public sector and also private sector. Very pertinent members and co-chaired by two prominent, chairman, Dato Tong and also Tan Sri Jamal. So in this case, we can see that private and public sector, we are working hand to hand to make sure that the outcome of the data sharing policies and regulatory can be realized. For your information, now in government we have a lot of issues in terms of data sharing. Because each agency or ministry, they have their own mother act, and then to share the data from one agency to another agency, we have to get some mercy from the other sides of agency, because that agency, they have their own act or mother act to profit from sharing the information to other agency. So now in this committee, we try to come up with a framework and drafting a new act, what we call it as Omnibus Act. Yeah. So in this Omnibus Act, there is we outline the classifications of the data, where the data can be stored. Is it in the public sector, sorry, in the public or in the private, on-prem or off-prem, offshore data center. So it shows that we are very serious in make sure that the policies and the initiative from government to share the data by agencies to public and public to business can be realized. And of course, now currently we have actually it's in going process to make sure that contract cloud framework agreement between service provider and also between managed service provider can be bind into one contractual. Then afterward, then there is no issue in the government sector or public sector in terms of the security of data and so on and so forth. So that's from. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay Hussin. I have seen how these omnibus laws have actually helped public sector transform in many countries, and definitely love to participate in public consultation when it becomes open, especially when we see cloud joining the utility band, from like water, electricity, telecoms, and now cloud is becoming part of the VTech, the utility procurement policy that we are also seeing everywhere in the world. I've had that opportunity to work deep on those policies, just in many different countries in our region as well. Thank you so much. I know we are at the last 10 minutes. I'm told that there are no questions, which means I get to continue to ask the question that I have here today. As we think about the role of data, and data, it continues to be top of mind. Data sharing in accelerating inclusive growth. Data sovereignty is the digital elephant in the room, I must say, quoting another colleague. It almost always comes up as an area of concern. In addressing this, Microsoft, together with several other technology companies, recently announced the Trusted Cloud Principles Initiative, which seeks to partner government around the world to promote the free flow of data, public safety, and to protect privacy and data security in the cloud. Would you see the Trusted Cloud Principle Initiative as an opportunity in not only creating clarity and addressing concerns, but also moving us closer to achieving our goals, particularly Malaysia's aim of 25.5% digital economy contribution to GDP by 2025? Mr. Fabian, would you like to take that question first?
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, Trusted Cloud Principles, it's a great effort from the private sector to partner with governments around the world to resolve, conflicts of law that impede innovation, security, privacy, so forth, and to establish basic protections of organizations that store and process data in the cloud, together with large tech companies such as yourself, Amazon, IBM, Google, Salesforce, and a host of others. Of course, the government of Malaysia can ensure the free flow of data, safe, promote the public safety, protect privacy, and data security in the cloud. In the same breath, these tech, the tech giants, together with more than 100 companies, have worked with the EDM Council, a cross-industry trade association for data management analytics, to create the cloud data management capabilities framework. This is something I think Malaysia should be part of too, right? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Fabian. I think one of the efforts I hope Malaysia will champion as we bring this trusted principle, we want to get local companies to scale up because in providing cloud services, they can work beyond the Malaysian market. You know, ascribing to international standard means it's not only looking within our market, but to bring our services abroad, partnering, and the value that it brings, I think it is just incomparable. Jay Hussein, do you have any thought about how,
Yeah.
you know, this is an important point? Could I have your thought?
Yeah. I'm agree with Mr. Fabian because this trusted cloud principle is a very good move, and then government, of course, we are very supporting this initiative. But then the most important, and I think this is a very big effort for MAMPU especially, to get engagement from the agency itself, to make sure how agency can, or ministry or whatever department, can participate in these cloud services. Some of the agencies are very defensive, as if that they want to put their data under their table. Yeah, a lot of agency. I think Mr. Fabian, you know better about that, right? Because this is some sort of change management that we have to put in place to make sure that our agencies are aware about the policies and about the data sharing trusted cloud principle. This is what I think MAMPU have to play a big role in this engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay Hussein. I think this is not just in Malaysia, to be fair, across the world, right? Across the world, we see this deep misunderstanding. And I must say, actually, I have a job because this is what I do. I go out to explain and, sort of share. And I've been very fortunate to be able to sit and from Malaysia to see some of these emerging trends as well. And I want to say that as we think about trusted clouds, one of the fundamental area where I think there's an opportunity is to actually step back and look at our own data estate. What is our data estate? What is the size of our data estate? I would like to quote another colleague, Dr. Zaha. I think most people here know Dr. Zaha, who always says we can't protect our paper clips and diamonds with the same kind of protection. It is so important that we actually go back to the fundamentals to see what is that data that I have? How am I classifying it? And I'm really looking forward to both contributing and welcoming the omnibus law that is going to look at data classification. I know we have last 5 minutes. Maybe I will go on to look at one last question, right? The digital economy blueprint squarely drives public sector for the 21st century. And we have seen that competitive public sector drives innovation. As a nation, we want to be competitive. As a public sector, we have brilliant people in our public sector. And we do not say enough thanks to our public sector, but I think I have an opportunity to thank you today. And this question that I have is, what would be MAMPU and SCMO's vision for the public sector such that we are able to attract, recruit, and retain top talent for the civil service? I'm going to start with Jay Hussein. Over to you.
Yeah, this is very, I think some sides a very sensitive question for MAMPU because currently we are in this My Digital Blueprint has been instructed to transform MAMPU into a new national digital agencies, right? So now currently we are working very hard to make sure that MAMPU can sustain in the digitalization in Malaysia. So first of all, what we're trying to do now is to make sure that MAMPU itself can be sustainable and then can be, can be posed as a very good example to other agencies and the public. And then in terms of functionality, in a new MAMPU, transform MAMPU, it's a very big task to do, because, for example, if you want to approve a project for the agency, we have to start from A, meaning to say that we have to work together with the agency, to formalize their needs and requirement in order to submit to EPU to approve their budget. So from here we can see that the role of MAMPU, it started from A until end of the project. So from here, I think the people, the MAMPU can attract more talented people into the public sector, area. So that's what I can see, because first of all, we have to transform the MAMPU first, then only we can talk how to bring in the talented people inside the government sector.
Thank you, Hussin. That's a very candid answer and a very brave one. But I welcome it completely. So Fabian, over to you as you wrap up.
All right. The perception that civil service is dull, backward, mundane, that needs to be addressed first. It's not true. It's not true. Of course, now we have the opportunity to hit a refresh button. Now, as we exit the pandemic, we go into the digital world and develop trusted and inclusive national recovery strategies for the post-pandemic resilience. I think the civil service has to prove itself this way. Having in the service for close to 30 years, I've seen firsthand lots of them are driven, passionate individuals, just like Mr. Hussin here, who are just here to create a better Malaysia. So the opportunity to participate in the development of and progressive Malaysia should be a rewarding experience for those people. And coupled with the right skill sets, direct and indirect benefits, we should be able to attract and retain talents for the civil service. In reality, running the government agencies is like managing large MNCs. It's very complex. I think sometimes it can be more challenging. So we need to provide the right platform, environment, encourage them, the right mindset in the civil service, not only to operate, but to really thrive and to become world-class. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fabian. What a fitting end. And with that, I want to say truly thank you to the civil service for navigating the last 2 years that has been particularly hard. I know we don't thank you enough, but I do want to, I hear you. We are all here to serve the nation. And truly with that, thank you for being Bersama Malaysia. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, thank you so much to Dr. Jasmine, Mr. Fabian, and Encik Hussin for sharing with us such a relaxed yet absolutely informative discussion on ways to shape a well-executed plan, structure, plus fundamentals in going into digital transformation and what can be achieved by a digital government plus its agencies. I would think 2021 and the fact that we've gone through so much within the past 2 years, actually, this is an actual eye-opener for all of us to be very well geared starting from today. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, in case you have any further questions whatsoever that you'd like to, get some answers from our experts, you can always feel free to send them over via email, and we'll be responding to you after the event. Email your questions to bersamamysummit@microsoft.com right here on your screen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, coming up next, we'll have a panel discussion on security and its best practices. And to moderate this session, we have Ms. WeiSee Wong, Senior Security Specialist from Microsoft, and our esteemed panel of speakers, Dato Dr. Haji Amirudin bin Abdul Wahab, Chief Executive Officer from CyberSecurity Malaysia, Mr. Abbas Kudrati, Chief Security Advisor from Microsoft, and Mr. Chor, Group Chief Executive Officer from Enfrasys. I will now hand over this session to Ms. WeiSee Wong. Over to you.
Hey, thank you so much, and very good morning to everyone. Thanks for spending time with us. So maybe I would like to just start this session, with some questions to Dato Haji Amirudin. So Dato, actually, what do you think is the biggest concern or challenge for Malaysia's public sector today when it comes to cybersecurity?
Thank you, WeiSee. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi, and a very good morning. Firstly, thank you to Microsoft for inviting me to share my perspective today. Going back to the question, I'd like to quote presentation by the speaker from MAMPU, Hussin, earlier, where you can see he highlighted that the government has approved about 128 projects with regards to ICT and digitalization project for the government, worth 3.8 billion ringgit. That's a huge amount of money. So what does it mean? It means the government is serious. So digital transformation is happening in the public sector in Malaysia. But in fact, it is not only happening in Malaysia, but I believe digital transformation is also happening around the world. So everyone goes towards digitalization, digital transformation, etc. And this is the way forward, actually. But at the same time, we know that we recently, since last year, when we had the pandemic, we see that more and more people are also, at the individual level, also move towards become, I would say, a digital user or netizen, resulting in they use digital technology for business, for work, for life, for procurement or purchase, etc. So now going back to this, actually, we at CyberSecurity in Malaysia noticed that there's a lot of, I would say, increase in terms of online cyber attacks, not only in public sector, but overall in general. And this is concerned. While we talk about digital connectivity that brings, I would say, a convenience, at the same time, it comes with some risk. You know, people work from home, for example. So we have multiple devices at home without proper restriction, policies, guidelines. So it increases the attack vectors, also gaps and vulnerabilities in the system, etc. And this is crucial because when we talk about public sector, we know that cyber attacks on public sector can be destructive because we depend on the government bodies to facilitate our everyday life, you know, our function in terms of the function and necessities of life, everyday life, and many things. So the risk is high, and the possibility of threat is also apparent. So as such, you know, it is important, obviously, when it comes to managing the issue of security, we need to look and try to close the gaps, especially in the three elements of people, process, and technology. Some of the concerns when it comes to, I would say, security in the public sector. In fact, I think it's not just public sector, but in many places also, is, for example, a component of people, the element of people. The element, the gap in terms of awareness, and also training, specifically in the area of cybersecurity, for example, and also the lack of expertise. Yeah, studies also shows there's a lot of deficit in many sectors, not just in public sector. So that's one component. That's key concern. And then in terms of the aspects of process, you know, government process may, because of is huge, can be rigid. Procedures can be rigid. So as such, it can be slow in terms of decision making because of the bureaucracy. But at the same time, the issue of the risk and compliance, for example, in terms of ISMS 27001, okay, we do know that government is moving and committed towards, for example, compliance to this international standard. However, it's not easy to have it, or so far there are still gaps in terms of having more and more, for example, compliant and certified under the ISMS 270. This is some of the example when it comes to process. And then the other element is on the technology side. When you talk about technology, you know, a government has invested a lot before. So the legacy I would say, previous technologies, the old technology or infrastructure, that's also a challenge, ensuring the security of the public sector. Plus, also sometimes not everything we should depend. We, as an agency that looks into security, there are things that we can depend on foreign technologies, but there are things also that we need to have our own technologies. But then sometimes the dependency too much can be, I would say, damaging. So these are some of the challenges when it comes to the element or the concern when it comes to the element of people, process, and technology from the security angle. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dato, for that valuable insight. I am also learning a lot every day. So I think maybe the next question is more to you, Bei, because we know you deal with a lot of customers day in, day out, you know. So actually, what are your customers doing today to actually protect their organization against all these increased risks and threats that Dato was also just sharing? Would you say that most customers today, they are on a secure environment? And how do they actually know if they are or otherwise?
A very good morning to everyone. Thank you, WeiSee, for that questions. And as we actually, as a managed service providers, we talk to a lot of customers. I think there are some protections being used in the customer's environment, not just on the public sectors, but also in others like commercial and financial institutions. But it's not widely enough looking at the evolutions of even the current threats that we have. Right, a lot of customers previously are building up a fortress and all those kind of things so that protects all their crown jewels and data and everything. But with this pandemic, as what Dato mentioned just now, right, there's a lot of remote work and all kind of the devices and all the vulnerabilities and the attack surface is actually getting more. So I think the visibilities of what's happening in the environment is very important, and we always say that we don't know what we don't know, right? So sometimes the visibilities of some things that happen, but we don't know about it, right? That's something that actually is quite a lot of gaps at the current situations that we can see. So reviewing of the security posture and where the environment are, right? What is the current stage? And I think embracing the zero trust, trust no one, whether you are working from an office or working from home is very, very important. And not just, I totally agree like what Dato says in terms of people and also the process as well. The people and also the process also need to be have that kind of a mindset that's always assume breach. That assumes that you get in a breach, not just in the protection, but also in the detection and response is also equally important. If something happens.
Okay, so actually, then another question following up on this, right? You see, public sector agency, they often worry that security cloud is not as secure, right, as on-prem, because if you're on-prem, everything is within your network, you're very secured, and hence sometimes they probably are quite reluctant to run their applications on cloud. So actually, what are your thoughts and advice on this from an SI perspective, from a consulting perspective? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think that questions remind me on my my grandparents' times, where they will ask why should I put my money in the bank? That get me relate a little bit into that, right? They will prefer they keep all the monies in under the bed, right? With the tin there, right? And that actually is kind of is a awareness, right? Whether they have enough awareness what is actually in the public cloud, and what's the compliance that is actually in the cloud itself, right? And understanding in terms of what are the like what Dato says in terms of the world standards of compliance that is at the cloud service providers. The cloud service providers actually give more less complex kind of in nature. That is mostly all world standards compliance and the best practices already apply. Is also whether it's all the current on-premise data centers and also the practices comply with all kind of compliance or not. I would definitely say that the cloud gives you a little bit more secure. That's what you have because of the list of compliance that is applied throughout the world standards. Beside that as well, one more thing is also the latest technologies. Dato also mentioned just now about the technologies itself. So the cloud providers always leverage the latest technologies with a lot of AI-backed analytics and also the worldwide kind of the data that's actually do the analysis on all the new trending threats. Dato also mentioned about people, right? Whether the right talent is there. I totally agree and echo about that as well, right? The cloud providers actually more secure in a way that they have a very, very good team, right? Actually, it's 24/7 and actually the right talent in terms of doing the protections and also detection. I see the cloud definitely is more secure.
So thank you so much, Bae. I really like the analogy of your grandparents' time of putting money under the bed, right? And I think we have also heard the kind of benefits that the cloud-based solution brings. So Abbas, my question to you, right? This is more tactical. So how can government agency actually kickstart their journey to cloud and leverage all these cloud-based goodness and security solution to actually protect their cloud workload, or even maybe hybrid if they decided it will be half on-prem, half on the cloud, from all these bad actors?
Yeah, thank you for your question, WeiSee. First of all, good morning, everyone, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, great question in terms of how or what can you do for migrating to the cloud? Well, it comes to number one question is a business case. What is the main business case of moving to the cloud? As Bae confirmed that, yep, you have heaps of advantage, right? When you're moving to the cloud environment, especially we in Microsoft, how we talk about is a shared responsibility model. And as you said, WeiSee, once you have everything in on-premises, we feel very comfortable saying that I can see my server, I can feel my server room, and I can see my machines which I'm running. But once it goes to the cloud, people are a bit hesitant. I don't know where the data center is. I don't know where the cloud is. Is it in Malaysia or is it in Australia? That kind of questions comes in. But at the end of the day, it comes to the right strategy and a right business case. So what is your business case? You definitely want to leverage all the people, process, technology, as Dr. Haji said, from the cloud service provider, because now you are sharing the responsibility or moving the responsibility for managing all the hardware, the physical layer, the network layer, even operating system layer when you pass it on to the cloud service provider. Or your strategy could be that I want to go fast and I want to reduce my capital expenditure. I only want to focus on my operational expenditure, and I want to pay based on what I use. I may have 200 servers in my data center. I'm only using 50. 150 are only used during the time of maybe election or during the time of I have my results been declared for the university. Rest of 9 months, it is wasted. When you move to this cloud service provider and you move your data and application to the cloud, you are now only paying for what you're using it, and it can scale up, as you know, for the benefit of it. So what's the objective? Two things you can do it, or actually three things. Either you can lift and shift if that application and the infrastructures are capable of migrating to the cloud quickly, or in many cases we have seen the best approach is to start from on-premises to the infrastructure as a service, but slowly migrate from infrastructure service to the platform as a service. Because as I explained, the shared responsibility model, right? If it is infrastructure as a service, you are only responsible for everything operating system and above. You are responsible for patching, you are responsible for data, application, and everything else. And your cloud service provider, in this example, if I can give you Microsoft will take care for everything from physical layer to the network layer to the hardware layer. But now you're moving your strategy from infrastructure as a service to the platform as a service. And as again, giving example of Dr. Haji Dato, he mentioned that how many attacks are we getting it, right? All the missing patches, what you have, all the phishing attacks, what you're getting on your operating system. Microsoft takes care of that because now it is our responsibility to take care of everything at a platform level to below. You only focus on your application, you only focus on the identity, and you only focus on the data. But as you move to the software as a service, a good example is Microsoft Dynamics or Microsoft 365 as one of the service, or any other. Could be ServiceNow or any other SAP, whatever application you can take it. We call it software as a service. In that case, you only focus on the data and identity. So imagine the value benefit you are getting it from moving your responsibility from your on-premise, from your own team, taking the advantage of cloud service provider, all the investment, what they do, how all the thousands of people they have behind the scene taking care of your infrastructure on your behalf, all the AI and ML technology which Bay talked about, right? They have all the machine power and AI analytics they bring in, always keeping up to date, always ready to available. It does make sense that you plan a strategy, either lift and shift, planning from infrastructure and slowly moving to platform as a service and take advantage of the cloud service provider of business model what they have.
Thank you so much, Abbas. So, Abbas, then that relates to the next question I have for you. I mean, we all know that you have actually worked with a number of very high-profile public sector agencies and also large financial institution, over the years, right? So for all those customers, like public sector customers that actually wants to take advantage of the benefits that the public cloud has to bring, or has the plan to actually migrate some, if not all, of their workload to cloud, maybe you can share with us some of the advice, what they should be looking out for.
Yeah, so look out from, as I was giving example of a business strategy or a business objective, right? So first thing is you have to make sure that you are not moving your technical debts from on-premise to the cloud. Because if you're doing the same thing, and again, giving example of Dr. Haji mentioned, right? All the legacy application, all the legacy infrastructure, what you have, if you are thinking that just moving your old outdated application from on-premise to the cloud will be secure. No, that's not the case. You have to take care of remediating those technical debt. Don't try to do garbage in, garbage out. Otherwise, that's going to be the same problem. So you have to make sure that if the application which is running on-premise, when you're moving to the cloud, that the architecture changes. It's not the same architecture which you can move from on-premise to the cloud. Principles may remain the same. But architecture has to be redesigned when you're moving it. Even though the way cloud operates, because it is now exposed to the internet, I have to be more vigilant in terms of making sure that I have the right dashboards like Secure Score as a Microsoft Secure Score, what we have to have a visibility of what are you monitoring. Last but not the least is which people or which team within your organizations is responsible for monitoring who can create what kind of cloud infrastructure. That's number one. And who can monitor the billing part of it. Because as I said, cloud is all about pay as you go. If you have given a administrator or a super privilege to your team and anyone can go and fire any kind of virtual machines on the cloud, Microsoft will send you $1 million bill and say thank you note saying that thank you for your business. That's not how it works. You have to define the right roles and responsibility within the team in terms of who has an access to the billing system, in terms of monitoring how much is being used and who has authorizations to create this kind of a virtual machine. And as I said, Microsoft Cloud comes with lots of policy inbuilt, which is one of the requirement, people, process, technology part. So process is very much important. People now you are leveraging the cloud service provider, but process has to be defined correctly. Billing process, monitoring process, security monitoring process, the policies in terms of can WeiSee go and create virtual machines with 1 terabyte of hard disk and 24 and 100 and 200 GB of RAM and whatnot? No, your organization doesn't need that kind of powerful machine. So you have to define and lock down all these policies in the cloud so you can slowly migrate upon that. Start with process. Technologies are always there for you. So this is my observation that many people, they just fire up the new machine in many organizations and nobody knows that the VM they created or the application they created is straight away exposed to internet. Because by default, this is how it's supposed to be. So you should know that any VM you create has to be locked down correctly. Otherwise, somebody will hack it from outside and they will create more VMs and you will get $1 million invoice with a thank you note from Microsoft saying, thank you for your business.
Yeah, then we will all be very happy, Abbas. Okay, so thank you so much, Abbas, for the explanation. So my last question is to yourself, Dato. I believe everyone here is actually very keen to hear from you as the CEO of CyberSecurity Malaysia. Actually, what do you think about on-prem versus cloud-based solution? And what advice would you offer to all these public sector agencies, right? I mean, we heard from Abbas. We would also like to hear from you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, WeiSee. Normally people go for cloud for accessibility, for convenience, for applicability, and they also choose, for example, when it comes to the government, why they go for cloud. Basically to reduce the investment, for example, on IT infrastructure. That's where the shared costs, like mentioned by Abbas just now, and also to save huge manpower, actually to maintain all these legacy system. But one of the important concern is basically about data when it comes to cloud. Before we talk about cloud or on-prem, for example, the key question, some of the basic questions that we need to ask is, are the data that's being saved in the cloud, are they secure? And so it's very important. And the other thing, will they be shared to other parties, especially with the fact that there are, I would say, concern that cloud not necessarily located or reside in that country. So the data, like just now, it could be somewhere else, other countries in the region or even far away. Yeah. So the issue of geolocation, data residing at different countries and different continents, so they have different legislative framework in managing the jurisdiction of that. So there's a concern, whether the data which is the dead assets of the nation that to be hosted by this cloud provider outside the country, not only yes they protect the redundancy, etc., business continuity, but in terms of security, and they can't be accessed by other countries for whatever reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a concern. So that's one area that needs to be looked at. The other thing when it comes to the issue of security and control, because the access control protection that needs to be understood between the CSP, the cloud service provider, on the processor, and also on the owner, when, where, who handle the government data, and whether it should be recorded, approved, or even monitored, and ensuring the actions are relevant, allowed, and tracked. So these are the concerns. And the other thing is on privacy. We have a lot of personal records, credentials, accessibility, and classification, etc. We need to ensure and have the verification of the information. So to me, whether on-prem or cloud, it is important that the government or the public sector in particular weigh the pros and cons about the issue of the data security, whether not everything should be on cloud, not everything also should be on-premise. There should be a mix of both. They need to define that, classify the data, which should be there, which should not. We should be building on-prem, or we should be put in cloud. So all these categories, all these criteria need to be looked at and need to be weighed appropriately. Because there are things that sometimes there are things beyond our control. There are things that we can control. So they need to manage. And that's why, again, I mentioned just now, the importance of understanding of classification, the importance of ISMS and others is basically, it is to ensure we protect the jewel, which is the asset, the data. So that's my view on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dato. Always learning. So, everyone, we actually still have about 10 minutes. Apparently, we don't have much questions from the audience, but keep the question coming in if there is any. So, Abbas, Bay, Dato, is there anything else that you guys want to add on?
I want to add to what Dr. Haji, Dato mentioned about understanding the right responsibility, right? So very well said by Dr. Haji. You have to define what goes where, but that also understand who owns the data. So I'll go back one step again, talking about the shared responsibility model, right? As I was explaining, the data and access to the data always remains with customer in case of a model, shared responsibility model with any cloud service provider. I'm not saying Microsoft, but any cloud service provider, you own the data, you provide who has access to the data. In case of Microsoft do not have access to any customer data because it is not in our control. And if we have to access any customer data, a customer has to open up that connection for us to go and access the data, and that too based on so many security control and processes they have to pass through in terms of, if I can give you one example, we have something called privilege access workstation. These are very hardened device, separate laptop than what we use normally. There is no internet connection on that. There are no softwares on that, only for the work they do, only for the limited period. When you allow customers, that particular engineer to come and work for to access your data, they can access it. Everything is logged and monitored. So that's a responsibility model. Every customer has to understand that who has access to data, how they manage the data, where they store the data, what classification of data you have defined, because customer will not define, a Microsoft or a cloud service provider will not define the data. They don't own the data. As Dr. Haji said, it's your data, you defined and you classified what and how it is, So it's very important in that case to understand particular model. And as I said, many countries in the world are still more than country, I would say. The legislation requirement in some countries still, I can, because I work at the Asia level, I know that they have a policy that there are certain sensitive data, it has to be on premises. Even though they are endorsed and confirmed, cloud is good and cloud is secure, but their policy has not changed. Maybe it requires some more time to get mature, and maybe there has to be a data center within the country. So all the data jurisdiction policies can be applied and managed and monitored in that case. So that's a case which is continuously we are working on that and making sure we are compliant with all the regulatory and compliance for every country in the world. That way you have a kind of an assurance. So trust us, but verify. That's the thing, rather than no trust and no verify, as Bay was talking about zero trust. In case of compliance assurance, trust us, but verify, and we provide you that verification part.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add on a little bit on top of Mr. Abbas, right? I see that throughout our implementations throughout in the customers, I think the cloud adoption framework is also very important. That's at the following best practices on adopting the cloud, on the discovering what you have and what your current situations, like your data classifications, right? What this data is under what kind of classification. Then moving towards to a very important part, which is the planning and strategy. So we don't go to the cloud just like, just like a cowboy and moving towards the cloud straight away, but with a proper planning, like who will be the responsibility parties, right? The shared responsibilities, that's what Mr. Abbas mentions. Plan in terms of, it could be changing in terms of the process by moving the on-prem workloads or applications towards the cloud. What is your cybersecurity protections and the strategies and also processes? Even might be changing in terms of the SOPs. The planning and strategy part is playing a very, very crucial stage where you must having the right governance, check and balance from people that is actually monitoring it, people that are operating it. I think those are the areas that we see that sometimes quite a lot of people actually take it for granted at the planning and strategy perspective.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, that's good insight. Actually, Dato, I am just curious, right? Because under government, there are like a few hundred different agencies, right? And what you were sharing just now to roll out all this is a lot of preparation, a lot of process and everything. Do you reckon to roll out, a full-fledged cybersecurity or maybe say even a zero trust model, it has to be done like centralized one shot, a big bang, or you will still have to go like agency by agency to preach? Actually, how does it work, Dato? I'm just curious.
Well, when it comes to Malaysia, there are various players that play each role with regards to IT, digitalization, even security, So obviously it is everywhere. Whether it's good or not, well, it depends on the country itself and what's the best. We cannot say centralized is the best thing. Decentralized totally is also the best thing. Actually, should be mixed. So in the context of government, for example, when it comes to IT, digital projects, etc., the lead is actually MAMPU. This is where I just now we've shared by Hussin how we can see about a huge amount of money been invested, 3.8 billion ringgit for all the digitalization initiative in the country, especially to the public sector. But when it comes to on the security, there are the entities from the National Security Council that looks on the policy and the strategy, and players like us on the technical as a specialist agency on the cybersecurity. But we also have players from the regulatory bodies, from law enforcement, like police, SKMM, that looks into enforcement. So to me, everyone has to play their own part and responsibilities. There's no such thing as one player. In fact, I believe in cybersecurity also, there's no one entity can do everything. You have to collaborate. Key is collaboration. The main thing is we are put apart in one direction, one vision, one goal, common to everyone. We have to play part of that. And each will play their own respective capabilities, roles, and responsibilities to meet that objective. So for that, that's why I prefer it always depends on the situation of that and the context of the country. Thank you. That's my view. Good insight.
So if we have no more questions from the audience, okay, there is a question coming from the audience. So they are asking that, just wondering what is security infrastructure in place to make sure that the cloud is safe. Just wondering what security infrastructure need to be in place to make sure.
Okay, I'll take that, WeiSee. So you don't have to worry about the infrastructure from your end to make sure the cloud is safe. It is more about the process and the roles and responsibility you define. Because infrastructure is now responsibility of the cloud service provider. But you need to create the process in terms of, as I was saying before that, create the policy so that your cloud is secure and been protected. Have the definition of your data classification, who owns the data, what kind of data it is. Have the roles and responsibility defined in terms of billing and on those processing part. Have the security monitoring part defined, because you might still have to have a team who will monitor the cloud usage, cloud attacks, cloud security part, cloud application security part, cloud infrastructure part. So if you are using an on-premise SIM, which is your own infrastructure, then you might have to take the data from cloud to your SIM or a SOC to analyze the data. But otherwise, using the cloud native SIM, such as Azure Sentinel, then you don't even have to worry about that infrastructure. Everything is on the cloud. Just define the right process, right responsibilities, and right people in your team to monitor everything, what you own and what you have. I hope that answers the question.
Yep. So that is how the whole SaaS as a software as a service comes about, right? So I think if there is no more question, then I am going to return the session to the host.
With that, thank you so much, Ms. WeiSee Wong, and of course our esteemed panelists of speakers for the very informative discussion. Some of the takeaways that I've actually garnered from here is that we have to take the responsibility as well to ensure detailed identifying of our very own data security based on our needs. Most suited secure infrastructure best fit for our business strategies and agencies, plus the flexibility to actually adopt and adapt based on our specific needs. So I guess that's the best takeaway. And this hopefully will give you some sort of an idea on what you can actually engage with in the nearest future. Once again, thank you so much to Ms. WeiSee Wong and our panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you've got any further questions that you just kind of thought about right now, you can always email them. Get them to be sent over to this particular email, bersama@microsoft.com. We will respond to you after the event. Once again, bersama@microsoft.com. Welcome back, everyone. We're here still at day 3 of the Bersama Malaysia Summit 2021. I hope that you had a good break, that you are refreshed right now, you had your coffee and ready to know a lot more this instant, because I would like to invite our next speaker who will be speaking on security matters and how you can protect your environment against modern-day bad actors. With that, let's welcome Mr. Minoru Hanamura, Chief Security Advisor from Microsoft, to bring you through this session. Over to you, Mr. Minoru.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. Everybody can hear me well? Okay, seems like it's working. So thank you very much. My name is Minoru Hanamura. I'm living in Yokohama, Japan, and actually this one is a broadcast from Japan, Yokohama. And nice meeting you guys. And today the topic is how we can protect ourselves against sophisticated attackers. So let's start the first the current environment. So this picture shows this about the Europe maps, and you can see the this dark area is ex-Soviet Union. And the lighter one is Western Europe, and the lighter color means the distribution of infected PCs. So what this means by that? That means the attacker tend to be on this area, the black one. Then they develop malware, but attacking to the rich Western countries. So what we can observe is the attacking is cross-border attacks. Well, our current jurisdiction system is just regulation or litigation is divided by country. So it's really difficult to follow those criminal people. Plus, the ones suppose the attackers are not attacking their own citizens, own nationality people. The police organization wouldn't prioritize high to chasing those attackers. So that kind of social dilemma, and it's really political reasons. It's really difficult to arresting those criminal people. The other aspect of cybercrime is now what they are building up ecosystem. Ecosystem means it's like a business, sounds like a business, but it's actually getting business. Used to be the criminal people should prepare from zero to going to achieve their objective. Usually achievement can be getting money from a victim or some sort of infringement to some prevent their competitors from operating their business. The kind of a goal they have to prepare from scratch. But now everything is ready in the underground. For example, the zero-day attack and the denial of service. Denial of service used to be very, very difficult to prepare because you have to infect so many devices. From that, they can attack the target, the website. That's not the easy task. But now they can purchase like a denial of service as a service, like a daily basis. They can just pay $100+. Then they can, the attackers, the service provider can attack the target. So that kind of a thing is now happening. And as a security advisor, usually I face many times from the past year that was the ransomware. So let's deep dive into the ransomware from here. So ransomware used to be a very simple one. In 2013, it's called a CryptLocker. It used to be a opportunistic ransomware. Opportunistic means is they are scanning some vulnerable devices, and luckily enough, that some portion, some few devices they can get into it, then can exploit that some vulnerability, and they can infect and encrypt some data, then ask money. At the time, no Bitcoin was available at the time, so it's really difficult to get the money from there because a police organization can chase up. Then it's really difficult without any track the receiving money. So there was a time in 2013, but now after everybody knows WannaCry or WannaCrypt and NotPetya, and then now 2020 and now 2021, we are facing the human-operated ransomware and plus double extortion. So let me dive into more detail. So human-operated ransomware is evolving the process. So as I said, used to be ransomware is just a commodity or per computer, few computers, they are affected. But now, the attackers try to expand the scope to enterprise-wide with the data theft function. So that's the first. Then they used to be a commodity ransomware they use, but now they are human-operated ransomware. Oh, can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, human-operated ransomware. So they are going into devices, many devices, plus operate from remote side. Why they are doing? Because the ransomware attack is so profitable. So it used to be, it doesn't make any sense to money investment, but now they are value because like a colonial pipeline, the tens of millions of dollars they can get from the enterprises. So now they realize it's a profitable for attackers, and they are getting money, so they invest that ransom money to another attack. So it's a kind of really getting worse and worse and worse. So that the current ransomware attack, from just a little bit technical viewpoint to see, this is the process of attack pattern. So how they can affect the corporate-wide network, because first they enter into a few devices that is vulnerabilities in nature, then they go into it, then lateral move within their network, and they will searching for some credential or privileged account. Privileged account is it's like an almighty account, typically on-prem, Active Directory, admin authority. If they can get the power of a privileged account, they can actually access any devices, any accounts in the network. Then they will do the corporate-wide encryption. But before encryption, they are wise enough, they steal data and exfiltrate some precious data outside, so that even though the victim wouldn't pay money to the attackers, but they are gradually disclosing those stolen data and make money, as well as they are threatened. Okay, if you don't pay our ransom money, we will disclose more. So the giving a huge psychological pressure. That type of a tactic or a strategy they're using. So it's really difficult to defend those type of attackers. And the typical famous ransomware is Ryuk. The usually entry point is email or Wadrama, the remote desktop protocol they are using. So that's the current cyber trend, and this is from here we will discuss how we can protect ourselves. So traditional approach wouldn't work anymore. So what we do is traditionally we are not to fail that we are targeting the perfect system. It's a fortified system, never ever allowed any entry. But under this era, this transformation, we wouldn't be able to. So now, to be practical, we have to resilience be more focused. So some portion of the device can be attacked, but quickly recover from that the damaged device or damaged accounts or damaged data. That would be more crucial, so that we can mitigate, not the 100% protection, but to mitigate the attacker's damage. So that's one thing. the second thing is the not focus only. Of course, we are doing some prevention effort, but not only a prevention, but also assume compromise. Then we can detect early and respond early. That strategy is really makes sense. Suppose we just focus on prevention, 100%, $1 million or $1 billion are spent for the security countermeasure, but that might not be enough. So it's not a practical approach. So what we recommend is this, two approaches: resilience and assume compromise and detect early. That would be the current strategy. Plus the benefit of a cloud you can utilize. As you can see, the traditional approach on the this white blank square is the some areas you have to work on. Nothing has been met to your responsibility. On the darker color of square means you met your responsibility, and the blue one is a kind of middle. But with limited security experts and with a limited resource, it's really difficult to cover every responsibility by yourself. So think about the cloud vendor like Microsoft. The some portion of protection is covered by cloud because we have a shared responsibility model. And the good news is for example, Microsoft case, we have the 8,500 security experts. So you can utilize those people and insights, the expertise. So that's one thing. Plus, leverage our cloud-based security capabilities. So cloud-based capabilities, I will briefly update a later presentation today, but cloud has a unique capabilities in a security viewpoint because of many attacks against cloud is so transparent. The attackers is really difficult to do a zero-day attack, for example, because a zero-day attack or company A, the ones, they attacked the one account, one customer, but secondary, thirdary customer is not zero-day anymore. So the knowledge sharing plus transparency can be utilized for your defense. And plus the cloud is a natively support the big data and the machine learning. So lots of intelligence data, so that intelligence interconnects like this. So utilizing that type of thing, actually you can enhance your security, the capabilities. So now think about the cloud usage for your effective security countermeasure could be the one area of your future plan. I just touch on the how cloud vendor has intelligence. So for Microsoft, the example, it's a daily basis. We are getting 24 trillion signals. We are calling it a telemetry data, plus some complex prediction from it. Then we automated actions is made in millions activities from that. So let me show you some picture. So just getting signal doesn't make any picture in your mind. So I can just help you to imagine. So like this, and we have many Windows devices. So some MDM devices. So Bing, the query search engine, on the Azure AD authentication, those signals we are collecting, so trillions of signals per day we are getting. Then those from signals we calculate and getting some insights or intelligence and making actions through our security services, and that the actions, most of the part is automated actions, and that's going to the distributed to the cloud customers. So that the mechanism is quite well. So let me dive into the more detail here. So this is the kinds of signal we are getting, including like samples. This is the we have many samples of malwares or dark market informations or some information is coming from a sinkhole. Sinkhole means that some infected Windows devices usually communicate with the cybercrime server that's called Command and Control Center. We say a CNC server, but that communication, we because of the support of our legal team, we will negotiate the litigation organization. Then those CNC communication data would be not going to a CNC, but going into our sinkhole. So that kind of redirection we do. Then we are analyzing what's going on, the malware activities. That kind of intelligence we gather. Then of course those individual data doesn't make any big meaning, but utilizing like a collection and normalization analytic with machine learning technology, we will get some insights. And through API, those insights going into individual security services like Microsoft Defender for endpoints. Then at endpoints, the Defender will react accordingly. And sometimes some further action needed. So it goes feedback to back again, the collection analysis. And sometimes we are, doing the hunters. The hunters are intelligent people. So most of the data analysis is done by automatically, but sometimes manually hunter would see, okay, what's going on, then what kind of new attacks they can observe. Then that the knowledge is now shared, how that knowledge can be automated, then going into this signal, then coming. So this feedback system is really, really good for enhancing our security countermeasure capabilities. The other aspect of how to protect is organizational issues. So now we see cybersecurity is one of the top management executive concern. So first, we have to make the policy, corporate-wide policy with executive buy-in agreement. Then that policy applies to security architecture, but don't forget about the compliance management, because of regulation is the key to conduct business. Otherwise, you cannot, your government can prohibit your business from going forward. So you have to comply with the regulations. So compliance management and security architecture should be, according to organizational policy. Then the aspect for the focus points is people, application and data, infrastructure, endpoint, and identity and the keys. And we see identity is a key pivot for protect your environment. I will touch on this area later. So this area is more like a protection effort, but as we discussed, now we are living in the era of assumed breach. So assumed breach means that somehow some incident happens, as few as possible, of course, but it happens. So we have to quickly resolve the issue. So we have to do a good security operations center where incident handling is a key, utilizing the external or internal threat intelligence. Then, once you set the policy, but since dynamically changing external forces and the attacking is getting more and more sophisticated, so we have to revise policy. Usually every year, some company is a half a year cycle. So this is a periodical process thing. Then finally, active governance is quite important. Once you set the policy, but it's not implemented fully, it's just useless, it's just a paper. So we have to make sure those policy is implemented with a good governance model. So we recommend, this is the left-hand side, we have to do a zero trust strategy, while the right-hand side is a modern SOC strategy. we just delineate each phases is the NIST cybersecurity framework. It's 5 phases from identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. So the first 2.5 steps we can implement zero trust strategy. Then detect, respond, recover. We can do the modern security operations center. So let me explain about that. The first zero trust, and everybody knows zero trust because of we are living in a cloud era. So some devices is outside of a network, especially after COVID-19 pandemic, and plus attackers impersonated account and valid user ID and the password. They enter into your network anyways. Sometimes they enter through VPN vulnerabilities. So perimeter model of defense doesn't make any sense in these days. So now we need the zero trust strategy. And the zero trust, the beauty of a zero trust strategy is not only a solid defense against sophisticated attackers, but also, the perimeter is not the baseline anymore. That means your device can be located anywhere. So without thinking about the location or within perimeter or outside the perimeter, we have to make sure your device status is healthy enough, hygiene is enough. That kind of checking is every session we do on the zero trust strategy. That means, you can work anywhere you want. So actually, this is really fit to under the COVID-19 remote work, hybrid work model. So I really recommend the work with the the security vendors, including Microsoft, how to protect your your company precious resource with the zero trust strategy. Okay, I cannot move next. Yeah. So the zero trust, the mechanism is like that. There is the some access. We call it a subject. In right hand side, we call it object. It's usually a data or some precious resource. Usually, the subject wants to access the object. We need authentication. Then gatekeeper says, authorize. Okay, this one is really the identifier. For example, in my case, so this is Hanamura's the access. So the Hanamura access area is like here and here and here. So each session, the gatekeeper assess the current level and allow the access. So let's consider about the subject or accessing entity. The level is the low level, or trust level is medium or high, and asset sensitivity is low, mid, high. Low request access, low sensitivity asset, that's okay. It's a equal level, but how about the mid level sensitivity resource? This is a little bit problem because of your level is low. So, you can, under the zero trust strategy, you can adjust the block access or limited access, but the third option can be that you can increase the trust of a subject. That is, for example, multi-factor authentication, so that validate you are. So the authentication power you can increase through that. So this type of a dynamic conditional access behind the zero trust. So think about that. This is sounds like a really new one underneath the SP 800-207, the zero trust architecture defined like 2 years old. But this type of conditional access approach is done. On the Microsoft case, we are setting our Azure AD identity management is a center of a policy enforcer for zero trust. All identity and the devices can be the trust level is measured by a defender for endpoint or Intune MDM capabilities. And the data sensitivity is classified like Azure Information Protection. That type of a feature was were available like more than 4 and 5 years ago. So The zero trust strategy is like sounds like a new, but actually gather and get it straightforward to old story, old strategy. So this is the Microsoft case. So left-hand side is the user and the devices which are trying to access to resources. Then calculating the risk level utilizing like a physical location or device hygiene status, then the machine learning method and the refer to a policy. Then the every session, we calculate the session risk, and according to the score of our session risk score, sometimes require a multi-factor authentication or password reset, then the allow access. So this is the zero trust architecture, what the Microsoft provides to the customers. So let's move on to the Security Operations Center. So we discussed about the first half of a cybersecurity framework, protect the identity and detect, respond, recover. Now we are talking, but somehow, very sophisticated, unknown attacks. The company, the enterprises or organization can get infected. So after the infection, we are called it, incident happens, then how we can react. So this is the defender's dilemma. So this knight means ourselves, a defender, and this dragon is attackers. While, we have the security specialized services like identity-focused services or endpoint device or email or application and some other areas, and then the defender tend to be belong to some silo organization utilizing their own services, while attackers traverse from one area to the other area freely. So it's really difficult. The other aspect of our dilemma is, each security service utilize some different terms, but that meaning in that same meaning. But that kind of a confusion we have to make sure to avoid. So we need to comprehensive approach to solving those attackers defense, so that we can minimize the time to infection time, then recover, because of a business continuity is really important. So 5 hour lost time can be enormous to our business productivity. So how we can quickly resolve, or how we can quickly control the area of damage, not the corporate wide we discussed in the ransomware attacks, but also we can limit the damaged area as small as possible, then contain, then recover. That could be the very, very important points. And while we are saying that there are many telemetry data, but we have to be careful, because so many telemetry data or intelligence data means that so many false positive, so many garbages, and instant team can handle. So we have to turn with the sophisticated tool like behavior analysis or machine learning, then focus like a true positive target. In the Microsoft case is more than 90% of a true positive case. But some people say, why it's not 100%? But we are balancing act. If you so many focus, zero false positive ratio, that means the false negative can appear. So some instant we cannot detect. So this is actually a balancing one. But this type of balancing we have to do. Then the automation of capabilities of, we call it SOAR, the cloud native SIEM solution. We can quickly respond the VBAC. So that type of balance is necessary, and using like a fusion, machine learning, correlation, we can get many data of clustering technology. Then billions of data becomes filtered out like 19 cases. So that kind of scoping, filtering technology is really necessary. And SOC structure, usually the enterprise or organization has a 3-tier model. So this case is a Microsoft case, but the tier 1 is a high-speed, more responsive tier 1 security operator incident handler. So usually the target can be like a 15 minutes or less, the fast response. And otherwise, those unresolved, the incident go into tier 2. Then tier 3 hunters should be more like a more intelligent type of person. Usually they are thinking the manual operation can be automated in the future analysis. Automation is the key for security operations center. So those are different roles we have to specify to realize the modern security operations center. Okay, so this is the final page and summary. So we see attackers traverse from entry point and a lateral move. Then that sometimes the privileged accounts they are attacking, then their goal is exfiltrate data outside and the setting outside in a dark market, or encrypt the inside network and get the ransom. So we have to think those each individual area should be integrated, then defend the wisely and quicker time, while the implement zero trust strategy every session we see, then defend ourselves. Today, due to time limit, I couldn't go into insider risk, but we have to think about insider risk also. But today, discussion is how to protect from external threats. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your time.
With that, thank you so much, Mr. Minoru, for sharing with us all that we need to know about cybercrime. It is real, it is borderless, and of course, it is important for us to identify the attack patterns and to also have our security strategies in place. So, as mentioned by Mr. Minoru earlier on, shifting the mindset to actually know when to choose the methods that offer protection and quick recovery is the key right here. Thank you once again, Mr. Minoru, for your time. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at our final session for today. So, allow me to introduce and to invite Dr. Zaha Mansoor, National Technology Officer from Microsoft Malaysia, to highlight on data classification for a digital government. Over to you, Dr. Zaha.
Thank you very much, MC. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and good morning, everyone. Now, we've heard just now how AI and data-enabled digital platforms is really accelerating the pace of the fourth industrial revolution, driving rapid socio-economic transformation and disruptions that all governments around the world must deal with. So to do this, we've agreed that they themselves need to embrace digital transformation. And we've heard that Malaysia is investing 3.8 billion ringgit actually in this area. So this morning or this afternoon, I'd like to share my thoughts on why hyperscale cloud is a key enabler for digital transformation and how agencies can actually adopt it in a compliant manner to proper data classification that Dr. Amir has mentioned just now. So I'll start off with looking at what is digital transformation and why governments need to embrace it, why hyperscale cloud is important, and then maybe lastly, how we can actually adopt hyperscale cloud in a compliant manner. Next, please. So if you look at the environment that we live today, if I reflect myself as probably the oldest person here in this session today, in the old days, really, if I were to leave something at home, I probably will, think that the wallet is probably more important than leaving the phone at home. In today's world, you will agree with me that actually I don't mind leaving my wallet at home because you've got e-wallets in the phone, but the phone, I've got to bring it to wherever I go, right? And if you look at, in the past couple of years, last 5 years, we see that, we could actually easily turn our home to a smart home where even a 2-year-old can actually turn on the entertainment system, right? And shopping has become so different now in this new normal, right? I don't go to the shopping centers anymore. Actually, I spend a lot of time in Shopee, in Lazada to buy what I need, especially in this COVID environment. So in many ways, the citizen, the rakyat has actually changed, right? Very significantly. Next, please. You didn't hear my request to change the, yeah, that's right. Now, so from a business perspective, the traditional industries like taxis, broadcasting, and so on are really challenged by digital aggregators like Uber, Netflix, and so on. And so companies that don't know, and companies today really don't know where the competition is coming from. So for example, Microsoft, right? We used to compete against the IBM of the world, the Sun Microsystems, Oracle, and so on. But today our main competitors are actually a advertising company and a retail company, right? So that is the situation that most companies will have to face. And if companies do not undergo digital transformation, then we've seen many companies actually disappear, and they will be challenged to stay relevant and succeed in this new world. So rakyat has changed, company needs to change. Next, please. Next slide, please. Now, it is for this reason that governments around the world, right, needs to be, stay relevant to their citizens, to the rakyat, as well as the businesses. So governments themselves need to change or digitally transform, right? The World Economic Forum talks about how this is very important, where it involves changes in the processes, the structures, as well as the tools that enable them for digital transformation. For example, the London Business School talks about that in the old days, large organizations and governments tend to spend 90% of their time in today's and yesterday's problem, and 10% of the time in tomorrow's problem. But in today's world, you can't afford to do that. They recommend that you should spend 70% of your time in today's problem, forget about yesterday's problem, get someone else to solve that, spend 20% of the time in tomorrow's problem, and 10% of your time in the day after tomorrow's problem. Why? Because the day after tomorrow is not going to come in 10 or 15 years. Day after tomorrow will come in about 3 to 5 years. And that is the reason why there needs to be a change in the way, for example, advocacy, allowing innovation and so on and so forth. Next, please. So in terms of dealing with all this, the changes in the government, in the citizens and businesses, they would expect that the citizen services should actually transform or adjust themselves according to be relevant to customers, to their citizens themselves. And this requires a different kind of platform, the digital platforms, which I'll explain more, to enable them to be agile, to be able to deal with the changes in the rakyat as well as the businesses out there. Next, please. And whilst doing this, they cannot forget that they also need to empower the employees, right? This is another vertical which is very important, so that they can actually do their work to make sure that things are actually aligned with the needs of the citizens. And also, as they do this, they need to make sure that the costs are managed, right? The operation costs are, you can do more with less, but not only that, you need to do more with less and also fast, right? So these are the 4 digital transformation pillars that most organizations would need to adopt, which is, engage your citizens, transform the citizens' services, optimize operations, as well as empower the employees. Next, please. And for this reason, that is why the government has actually, released this digital economy blueprint. And the whole idea here is so that they can accelerate the public sector transformation, right? And this anchors on embracing these digital platforms. And what is a digital platform? It is actually a combination of technologies, a mashup of technologies, which we all are used to, for example, the social and your smartphone, for example, and that generates a lot of human-generated data. And with the sensors in your smartphone, like, the camera, the GPS, the accelerometer, that generates machine-generated data. And combine this, there's huge amounts of data that is created. For example, just last year, in 2020, it is expected that it is estimated that there are 44 zettabytes of data, and by 2035, 135 zettabytes of data. That's how much the data will grow. And this requires a new form of way to actually process the data using big data techniques. And all of this was not possible if it's not because of the hyperscale cloud, which brought down the cost of computing by an order magnitude, right? That is why companies can come from nowhere, like Grab, which we don't know 5 years ago, become very successful today in a short period of time because they didn't have to invest in all this infrastructure. Now, with cheap computing, cheap storage, and also the huge amounts of data, that is why you see breakthroughs in the AI, which brings the level of automation to another level, which is available to the governments as well as citizens and businesses today. Next, please. Now, very fundamental to all this digital platform is actually the cloud, and specifically the hyperscale cloud, right? Because it gives you the cost benefits, the total cost of ownership, which is reduced significantly, the agility, I'll talk about that later, and also the security, which actually has been done in the past, right? In the previous session. And that is why if you look at one of the lowest hanging fruit is for the public sector to adopt the cloud, and you're talking about KPIs like 80% usage of the cloud. And that's kind of, at this point of time, people are saying, how do I do this, right? And why governments like this public cloud is because they don't need to invest, right? They use their pay, they don't use their pay. So it's a capex kind of situation, right? So it's like a private-public sector, partnership where the private sector actually invests in infrastructure and public sector can use it. Next, please. So I think before I go on, let's have a common understanding what cloud is. And the fortunate thing is that cloud is actually very well defined, right? But what is not cloud? I think that's also very important. Cloud is not about just the internet. It is not also about your existing infrastructure connected to the internet, right? Or it's probably arguably not hosting either, right? And the reason why is that ISO defines cloud as being a couple of characteristics, and this is very aligned to the CGSO cloud computing in the public sector guideline, which I'll be referencing to in this data classification session, is that it has certain characteristics which are hard for these other infrastructure to meet. One is on-demand self-service. Just imagine you can go to a portal and say, I want 5 servers, right? Or 10 servers, whatever it is. And then you click on it, and the next couple of minutes, you actually get 10 servers, virtual servers running for you already, right? So then the other thing which is hard to do is, for example, if you have an application, let's say, for example, an app, that you need to develop an app which, the rakyat will have to apply for vaccination, for example, right? And suddenly you don't know what the load will be and say, okay, let's try with maybe 20 servers at this point of time. But suddenly you get, 2 million people actually coming in simultaneously over that 1 hour. You need to scale it up immediately, right? So this is the kind of thing that hyperscale cloud allows you to do, right? And then when it's not done, you can actually scale it down, and maybe you pay a few hundred ringgit, for example, right? Now, so the other thing is about measured service. That is the ability for you to measure everything, the usage of CPU, memory, so on and so forth, to the extent that you can use a pay-per-use service. Next, please. So then the other thing which is important for us to understand is how cloud is actually being deployed, right? On one hand, you have this, rich organizations can build their own cloud and host it themselves, of course, right? But you need to be rich to be able to do that. Or they can actually leverage on a bit of scale here by having several rich companies putting together their cloud environment inside, say, a centralized hosting, for example. Or another case is that you can have also, for example, a company which then uses it, implements and buys the servers and so on, and then they provide cloud as a service. Now, the disruptive effect is when you run hyperscale cloud, and you're talking about millions of servers, right? So it is well known the fact that when you run 100,000 server compared to a 1,000 server data center, the total cost of ownership is reduced by an order magnitude, right? And that's why, you find that the whole market's actually moving to the cloud because of the economics. And that's one of the main reasons. I also want to also differentiate between this commercial hyperscale public cloud services versus the consumer public cloud services, because it's causing a lot of confusion. Consumer public cloud services are like Facebook and maybe, the free emails, Gmails, Hotmail, and so on. Now, those are public cloud services which are free. In fact, they have a different kind of alternative business model. When I talk about the hyperscale cloud in government, I'm talking about this commercial public cloud where you have to pay, and there's SLAs, there's contractual obligations, and so on. Next, please. So in summary, the hyperscale cloud brings three major benefits. One is economics. We talk about the fact that, you can reduce the cost of ownership for computing by an order magnitude. And this is what someone mentioned, a speaker just now mentioned about how you drive a sustainable digital transformation. Because if it's too expensive, you cannot sustain it, right? Second is about agility. You can try new things, and if it works, you can expand. If it doesn't work, you can shut it down, right? These are the things that you cannot do in a traditional environment, even in a hosting environment. And finally, it's about cybersecurity, right? We talk about how challenging cybersecurity is now, as in the previous speaker. And I think what is happening now, like for example in banks, right? They say, hey, I can now share the responsibility of cybersecurity with a cloud provider, because cloud providers like Microsoft spend $1 billion USD or maybe 4 billion ringgit a year just on cybersecurity, compared to Malaysia spending 3.8 billion just on digital transformation over the next couple of years, right? So huge investments on cybersecurity by these cloud providers. Next, please. Now, we talk about shared responsibility, and I have to explain this a bit. Now, if you were to run your own infrastructure, you're responsible for all these 10 areas, right down from operations right up to the data. Now, if you use infrastructure as a service, which is running just virtual servers, this reduces from 10 areas to 4.5 areas. So and the rest be taken care by the cloud provider, right? And you can run whatever applications that you develop on top of this infrastructure as a service, environment. Now, if you go for software as a service, something like, for example, email, Office 365, for example, and so on, then the responsibility becomes from 10 to just 1, which is you manage your data because the data is actually yours, right? So you don't have to do patching, you don't have to manage the infrastructure, you don't have to do a lot. Just manage your data and your endpoints. Now, but then the downside is that you can only run this particular software, right? So something is between called platform as a service, where you can bring your own applications and run it, and without the headache of actually managing the underlying infrastructure like patching and so on and so forth, right? And you have that flexibility to run your own applications. The only thing is that you need to architect your applications in a particular way. Like, for example, develop it in containers and so on, right? Next, please. But as we do this, remember just now that, that Dr. Amit talked about compliance, about, the minimum compliance to minimum assurance on security. And this is why it is important to comply to, standards like ISO 27001 or ISMS. And the nice thing about the hyperscale cloud is most of them are actually compliant to many of the standards. So that, your infrastructure is already ready. It's out of the box. It's already compliant to ISMS. It's already compliant to ISO 27008, which prevents the cloud providers from accessing your data. ISO 27017 controls specifically for the cloud. And even 22301, which is the business continuity management, which is very much addressed in the CJSO documents. Next, please. Now, security and privilege controls should not, it is very important, right? So in the past, there is this confusion that cloud is not actually secure, right? And probably it's because of the confusion with services like Facebook. You put your data there, everyone will know, for example, right? But in the case of CSPs like Microsoft, I mentioned we spent 1 billion or 4 billion ringgit a year just on cybersecurity. It's all about the investment in cybersecurity, right? Now, I think the second misconception is that, when the data is in the hyperscale cloud, other governments can access. So for example, if it's in Singapore government can access, or maybe US government can access. In fact, we had a deep discussion with PUU on this, right? And explained, actually, it's not that easy, right? The first thing is we don't give keys. There's no backdoors. In fact, we let governments look at our source code and so on to make sure there's no backdoors, right? And if you look at the laws, the only way other governments can access your data, government data, is actually through a G2G multilateral assisted or MLAT environment, right? This is a G2G kind of process where it overrides the things like, for example, the laws that we are concerned about, like Patriot's Law and so on and so forth, right? And finally, I think the most challenging, I think the thing which the governments now are concerned about is because it's so secure that even the Malaysian government themselves can't access the data, right? So that's why there is a process to be able to do this. For example, you can, you have to actually go through the data owner themselves. And in the narrow scope, for example, there is a case of criminal cases, then there is actually a process for you to be able to do it. So, if you need more details so that we can have a discussion. Next, please. Now, when we talk about, security, privacy, and secrecy, they're actually different concepts, right? The underlying layer for you to have privacy and security is, privacy and secrecy is actually security. Without that, you cannot have, either privacy or secrecy. Now, privacy is it's kind of you're protecting your own or the data subject's information, right? So that if it gets released, it damages yourself, right? And that's protected by the Personal Data Protection Act. But when we talk about the Official Secrets Act, it actually protects secrecy of the country. That is, you don't want data which is perhaps advantageous to other or give strategic advantage to our adversary from accessing the data, right? So it's kind of a bit of different, and that's why there is a different law or different regulations related to this. Yeah, next please. So let's talk about how the final section of my discussion is how we can actually adopt the hyperscale cloud in a compliant manner. So traditionally, what has happened, where I observe, is that most agencies will say that, yes, we have data classification, but I follow that CGSO data classification, which is that 4 areas: terhad, sulit, rahsia, and rahsia besar. Yeah. So now the good thing is that the new CGSO guideline gives a more clarity on this, right? Next, please. So if you look at the details, and the way I'm going to structure this is a balance between complying to trying to support the digital economy blueprint while being compliant to the CGSO guidelines. Next, please. Very central to the CGSO guidelines is this lampiran 1, where it shows you what can go to the cloud, what can go to the cloud. Now, have a close look at the leftmost column. Actually, there's rahsia rasmi, which is that 4 layers that we talked about just now. But there is also data rasmi, which is different, right? Now, next, please. So if you look further detail, rahsia rasmi is that lower part, right? And even that, parts of the rahsia rasmi can go to the cloud, a small amount, right? That is those which are terhad and sulit, and it is not dalam jadual, it is not things like cabinet papers and so on, actually can go to the hyperscale cloud, but it has to be in country, right? Now, next, please. All right. But it's not only that. If you are deciding that your data is a rahsia rasmi, actually it attracts further controls, right? So, for example, in the case before you can decide it's a rahsia rasmi, right? Either of those 4 categories just now, you need to have it evaluated by a data classification officer, minister, or chief minister, and that's in section 4.1 of that document, right? But not only that, you have to conform to the official secrets life cycle, right? Where it adds additional 34 controls, for example. And then you need to also use, when you encrypt, you need to use product cryptography terpercaya in 12.1.5, right? You make sure your data center is tempat larangan, 13.4, right? You need, when you delete your data, you just cannot delete it. You need to sanitize it, right? It's a special way of deleting it based on, for example, NIS NIST 888, for example. And then you have to have security screening for people actually dealing with data, right? So there's a lot of additional controls once you actually decide it's a rahsia rasmi, either of the 4 categories just now, right? So that is why in the document itself says do not over-classify, because they will create additional cost and complexity. Next, please. Now, some of the things when we discuss the CGSO, a couple of things to take note. One is that security The underlying thing needs to be whether it's Rahsia Rasmi, you have to apply security across the board, right? So that's the first point. The second point is that the responsibility of classification is the data owner, because CGSO will not know what your data is and how sensitive your data is. So they provide a framework through that document, and you decide what it is, right? The third thing is that before you can decide it's a Rahsia Rasmi, it needs to go through this determination by an appointed officer, by the minister or chief minister. So if you're not going through that process, it means that your data is actually data Rasmi, yeah? And that's in the document section 4.1. And actually CGSO, even MKN, and so recognize that not all data needs to be Rahsia Rasmi, right? So if you need to be Rahsia Rasmi, it needs to be explicitly classified as such, right? As an official secret. Next, please. So here is a kind of a simplified process, yeah? I know there's a lot of details and you can read the document, but this is simplified. The first thing when you want to consider cloud for government data is making sure that the cloud provider meets the minimum security requirements, things like compliance with ISO 27001, 27018, 27017, BCPM, and so on and so forth, right? So that's the first thing that needs to be done. Now, once you do that, then ask yourself, do I normally actually get approval from the data classification officer for this data or not, right? If you don't, that means it is not a Rahsia Rasmi. It is actually data Rasmi sahaja, yeah? All right? But if it is, then you got to go to the additional process of discussion with CGSO, then deciding whether it's Rahsia Besar, Rahsia, or Rahsia, or Terhad, or Sulit, yeah? And then based on that, you have to do certain additional controls, which I discussed just now. But if it's something that you don't normally need to go to the data classification officer to decide, then this is actually data Rasmi, which means that then you have to decide whether it is sensitive or not, or whether it's what's called data terkawal. And data terkawal is essentially finance information, health information, and personal identifiable information, PII, yeah? And if that's the case, you need the requirements is for you to store in cloud, in-country cloud, right? But all the rest of the data, which is currently, actually most of it is considered as data Rasmi, that can go to the public cloud in any location. Next, please. So coming to the end, if you do this proper data classification, as explained by Dr. Amir just now, actually you can meet your KPIs. We believe that if you take the public, the data Rasmi itself and a bit of the data, Rahsia Rasmi, actually you can easily hit the 80% in most agencies, not all. I wouldn't say, for example, military, you can do it, right? No, you can't, right? But in most other agencies, you're not dealing with very highly, Rahsia Rasmi data, actually you can do it, right? So that is the way you can actually achieve your KPIs while be compliant and leverage on an infrastructure which gives you allows you to do more with less, fast to meet the requirements of the digital transformation. Next slide, please. So next slide, please. So, and finally, I think the first thing is whether you like it or not, digital transformation will happen. And government plays an important role in this whole process, right? For us to stay relevant and succeed in this new world as a nation. Secondly, hyperscale cloud, the use of hyperscale cloud, public cloud is actually very fundamental to enable the government digital transformation because it allows this agility and so on. And the final point I'd like to make is that if you do pragmatic data classification, then we can actually allow us to use and leverage all these digital technologies enabled by the hyperscale cloud while being compliant to the laws and regulation of the country. Next, please. Finally, we know we just came out from COVID-19. We knew how to actually respond to it, right? We have actually recovered from it, leveraging on digital technologies. I think moving forward, I think one of the things that we should not do is going back to the old days of doing things. We are already on a highway. We should not go back using Jalan Kampung, right? We should actually continue on to imagine so that we can leverage on digital technologies to drive the nation forward. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zahar, for that very, very specific and precise justification on why must the government be on board this transformation into the digital environment, and of course staying relevant and having a a strong form of security really reflects in our competency in the long run. So with that, thank you so much once again, Dr. Zahar. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you've got any questions that you just thought of, once again, you can always drop us an email right here, Bersama Summit@microsoft.com, and we will respond to you right after the event. We have come to this part, ladies and gentlemen, to close off the Bersama Malaysia Summit 2021. I would like to invite Mr. Sheikh Manzoor, General Manager of Public Sector Group in Microsoft Malaysia, and Tengku Razmi Othman, Chief Executive Officer from Enfrasys Solutions, to give us a word or two to close off the Bersama Malaysia Summit 2021. Over to you, Mr. Sheikh and Tengku Razmi.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Sophia. On behalf of Microsoft, I would like to thank everyone, all the organizers, everyone, all the speakers, all those who have sponsored this event and made their time to participate in this, and more importantly, all the audience out there who've again made time to participate in this. So thank you very, very much for your participation. Before I end the session, I would just like to share a couple of slides with you so that we can, go on to brainstorm as to how we can move forward with what has been shared in the last few days. Next slide, please. I wanted to jump on very quickly in terms of what has been discussed in recent times, and I think for all the right reasons. The 12th Malaysia Plan kind of charters the way forward for our country. And we had, earlier in the day, we had Dr. Fabian, who had shared some of My Digital Blueprint conversations. And it's interesting, a lot of those areas are converging and overlapping with what has been shared in the 12th Malaysia Plan. What I also want to talk about is, I'm sure most of us here are familiar, when we talk about the theme, the tema for Rancangan Malaysia ke-12, you talk about Menjana Semula Ekonomi, which is the resetting of the economy. Tema kedua, which is memperkukuh keselamatan, kesejahteraan dan inclusivity, which is strengthening security, well-being and inclusivity. And then tema ketiga, which is melonjakkan kemampanan, advancing sustainability. As we dive deeper into it, then we talk about pemangkin dasar ke-12, the enablers. You look at the first one, which has been shared by the earlier presenters. You look at pemangkin dasar pertama, which is membangunkan bakat masa hadapan, which is developing future talent. And then you talk about pemangkin dasar kedua, mempercepat penerima gunaan teknologi dan inovasi, which is accelerating technology adoption and innovation. Pemangkin dasar ketiga, menambah baik kesambungan dan infrastruktur pemangkutan, enhancing connectivity and transport infrastructure. And pemangkin dasar keempat, memperkukuh perkhidmatan awam, strengthening the public service. So it encapsulates all of the stuff that we've been discussing in the past 3 days. And I wanted to jump on to summarize and kind of relate back to the areas that we've discussed in the last few days. Next slide, please. And this is where it's interesting, right? So if you look at pemangkin dasar pertama, which is membangunkan bakat masa hadapan, Microsoft as an organization has already made that commitment as part of the Bersama Malaysia. We have committed to equipping individuals with equal opportunities to thrive in cloud and AI-enabled digital economy. And to that effect, we will skill additional 1 million Malaysians by end of 2023. And as you can see, we've already started on that journey. The Human Resource Development Corporation and Microsoft have already signed an MOU to train 300,000 Malaysians. Microsoft, SOXO, and JA Malaysia to empower 25,000 Malaysians with digital skills. And over 110,000 people in Malaysia acquire digital skills in COVID-19. Where I want to leave this with you and all of the audience in there is post these sessions. Please feel free to reach out to Microsoft and Enfrasys when it comes to anything that you need to know about acquiring digital skills. We are the forefront of this. We believe the investments that we need to do to help you with that is part and parcel of what is in the My Digital Blueprint, as well as it's in the 12th Malaysia Plan as well. As you can see, membangunkan bakat masa hadapan, and one of the key areas is actually digital skills. So, please come forward. If any of these training needs and analysis that you require, please step forward to make those requests. As Fabian shared earlier just now, Dr. Jasmine also, we are in discussions with various government agencies as to how we can have a programmatic approach to enhance and upgrade, learn, unlearn digital skills for all public sector servants. So watch that space as we will work with the various agencies with government in Malaysia. In the meantime, if any of these items that we shared with you in the last 2 days, has tweaked your curiosity, that you may want to have a better understanding on it, please feel free to reach out to us for better information. And if it's something that you need that can be enhanced with training capabilities, let us know. We'll definitely get in touch with you. The other 3 areas, next slide please, is equally interesting as well, right? So when we talk about the dasar kedua, pemangkin dasar ketiga, dan pemangkin dasar keempat, penerima gunaan teknologi dan inovasi, menambah baik kesambungan infrastruktur dan memperkukuh perkhidmatan awam. Again, encapsulated. So what I'm going to share with you very quickly in the next few slides are all of those capabilities that we can talk about. So next slide, please. As we all live in an environment where a lot of digital capabilities are coming together and confluencing, mobile capabilities, PC capabilities, etc. So today, as we live in a city, when we look at, for example, public transformation system, we look at public security, we look at even as individuals, how do we renew our driver's license? And a lot of people have been complaining the offices of JPJ has been closed on and off. Most of us are not able to renew our road tax and our driver's license. These are all challenges that the citizen as Malaysia has been facing as well. As citizens, the collection of the refuse has not been happening regularly as well. Those people who are in need of welfare, how do we get access to welfare, etc. And even simple little things like council service, etc. A lot of disruptions has happened, and we live in this age where the pandemic continues to have an influence on how a lot of the services is being able to be delivered. So as we move closer, we know that digitization of the services is very, very important as citizens become less mobile, they have less ability to actually reach and have a face-to-face kind of transactions. The means of interacting with citizens, digital is one of the ways forward. And citizens' expectation and demand for digital services really requires for the government and the civil service to actually adapt and be able to provide those services at quantum speed. And this is interesting. And next slide, please. In any citizen's world today, you talk about citizen experience journey. Any citizens will call upon the civil service to seek help for information or to track requests, to obtain services, to connect with different agencies. Could be passport renewal, health and safety information, access to government information, etc. Right? So today we live in that world where a lot of these confluence capabilities are there. So you get a lot of these digital hotspots. And city services and insights and mobility, traffic management information, these are all part and parcel of our daily lives, especially those who live in the city world. So citizens want to be able to connect with fellow citizens. Citizens want to be able to connect with the services. They want to be engaged with all the various agencies that provide those services to the citizens. And it's important how the technologies come together to be able to support that, right? And next slide, please. And this is where the capabilities of Microsoft it comes to play, right? And we have all of the capabilities, the technological capabilities, as you've heard from the speakers, not only from an infrastructure point of view, how to make the secureness of the data and the ability for you to scale your infrastructure capabilities are all there. So with that, we aim to provide the digital transformation for all citizens, be it from a citizen point of view, but also from a service provider. You as the agency responsible to provide that services to that citizens, you can modernize your respective government workplace so that you have a better way of interacting with the citizens, and citizens have a better way of engaging with you, and we together then help to modernize the government capabilities, right? Next slide. So we talk about that. We are engaging and connecting with the citizens. We provide a secure, inclusive, deep citizen engagement. We also help modernize government workplace. As I mentioned, not only just from an infrastructure point of view, as I started up my presentation, I talk about skilling and talent. We also look at how we increase the digital capabilities of the public servant skill sets as well. So we not only talk about the physical changes in the way you do, but also from a mindset changes as well, and how you use digital to improve not only your work, but also to improve the life of the citizens. And as part of that, we also enhance the government services, not only from the delivery of the services, but then also get to use to apply AI and machine learning we use to data analytics to be able to understand citizen behavior, to drive actionable, predictable, efficient, citizen-focused services as well. Next slide. And you heard that today, the key theme of today was about security. And you saw how all the various speakers spoke about the importance of data and security to the citizens. Microsoft as an organization, we have deep security investments and expertise. You heard how we spend a lot of money annually to protect all of the information and to provide many, many security professionals to protect that data. We have many, many customers who are across not just at the large corporate customers, but also government services. And you may have heard how Microsoft also has been working with many, many secure-related, for example, defense, the police, agencies, where we help them transform their services as well. Next slide, please. And more importantly, we are doing all of these by meeting all of the compliance standards that's available out there. You talk about the standards that's available in the US of A, the standards available in Europe, and we also comply with all of the international ISO certifications, security, etc. It's very, very important for us to ensure that we have your trust to be able to run all of the services running on Microsoft platforms and services. In a nutshell, we have helped many, many organizations like yourself to achieve more. And I will, in the interest of time, and I know I will give way to my esteemed colleague from Enfrasys, Kudrati. I'll just jump to the very, very last slide. Can we just skip to the very last slide? So I wanted to end with this. Microsoft, our mission here is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. I sincerely hope the sharings we've done in the last few days has helped you have a better understanding of how we can help you, we can empower you, and for you to be able to achieve more in order to provide better capabilities for you in your workplace and to provide better services for the citizens. With that, thank you very, very much for your participation and your attention in the past few days. And wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And I pass you over to my colleague, Kudrati, for the closing. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Sheikh, for that wrap up and some synopsis on the 12th Malaysia Plan and its various trusts. One of the key trusts is on that talent development and acquiring digital skills. These are quite important for us as well in a small company like us, Enfrasys. And expectations of citizens to better services and better interactions with the government, with the civil services. Those points are quite important for us moving forward. Well, we had a great 3 half-day event where on day 1 we had the topics on compute anywhere using Azure Hybrid. On day 2, using cloud to improve operational resiliency and agility. And the sharing from Petronas Digital, that was I think, beneficial for us, especially in the commercial side, where technology is just a simple part, right? But getting the people to change and use and upgrading their skills is one of the key challenges that organizations face when they do or embark on digital transformation. On day 3 today, the cloud security and governance for Malaysian public sector, we discussed or shared by Cik Hussin from MAMPU, Cik Fabian, CEO of SCMO, EPU, and other esteemed panelists discussing on security and data accessibility. Cik Abbas, Dato Dr. Haji Amirudin, Mr. Bey, Mr. Minoru, and Dr. Zaha on data classification for digital government. One of the learning was that the importance of collaborations between various parties to meet objectives, especially in the area of security initiatives, is quite important. That was some of the learning that I got today. Hope that some of those topics will facilitate all of us, and importantly, our customers and the agencies, to improve understanding of security and governance. When evaluating moving work clouds to cloud, those are areas that you need to consider. You guys had deeper insights into the types of malicious threats that organizations are facing now and how to protect against those threats. Also, probably expose yourself or learn about practical ways in which agencies can accelerate their future readiness to enhance the experience offered to citizens. And lastly, knowledge to help agencies and customers develop cloud strategies encompassing hybrid cloud in their planning. I'm sure the journey has started in most of your organizations, so do reach out if need any help. Again, I'd like to thank you all the speakers, panelists, our MC, Ms. Sophia, and the crew that made this event a success. Moving forward, do contact us at Enfrasys and our partners for any queries in your digital transformation, the area of cloud, data and AI, and your security journey. Each of us are at the different stages of that journey, but to start the journey is inevitable so that we could better serve our customers and our citizens and to meet the aspiration of MyDigital. We are more than willing to collaborate, support, and be part of your journey. Thank you all for being with us in this Bersama Malaysia Summit 2021, Empowering Malaysia Economy. Have a great day and a Barakah Friday. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you so much, Mr. Sheikh and Mr. Tengku Razmi, for the summary and heartfelt thoughts on the Bersama Malaysia Summit 2021. Thank you for concluding our 3 very informative days. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the Bersama Malaysia Summit 2021. I hope that you have found the sessions insightful and beneficial over the past 3 days. We are so thankful to have you attending this, joining us for the past 3 days, and we hope that you've learned something great at the Bersama Malaysia Summit 2021. Once again, our huge thank yous, our biggest appreciation to our partners who have made this happen. Enfrasys, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, Commvault, and Perjasa for supporting this summit. Thank you so much from all of us. And yes, we hope to see you around really soon. Stay safe. My name is Sophia. It's been a pleasure being your host. And this is the Bersama Malaysia Summit 2021. Take care. See you.